So here we are back in the room where Nathan is on the phone with his wife, Elise, and he is screaming and shouting. He is furious. His brother has just attacked him at the beach, no, in the water, headbutts, his head is bleeding, cuts on the lip, everything. It went down in that ocean water. Okay. It was a mess. It was a whole entire mess. Not only was it a mess, other people got to watch what was going on. Remember, some of the boats driving by had some of the guests. So people got to see this brawl. It was a mess. And this is not who Nathan is. He is a very well put together type of guy, family man. He doesn't go around having brawls in public. So he's mortified and he's livid. So he's on the phone telling his wife, who's trying her best to calm him down, because her thing is that, regardless, I get that this is just something, this unfortunate incident happened, but he's still your brother. Now, to Calvin's defense, yes, you don't attack your siblings. Yes, you don't fight physically. But why would Nathan bring that up? Why would Nathan? I mean, their mother has passed away. Calvin had prided himself on the fact that, a lot of things happened in war. He had been through a lot. He had seen a lot. But his thing was, the thing that kept him, at peace, the thing that made him feel like it was all worth it was the fact that his mom, or at least he believed his mom, was very proud of him, that she completely agreed with his decision and supported it. And so here Nathan is telling his brother Calvin, no, actually, mom didn't think you should have gone to war. We both thought you were pretty childish. And I don't think the mom quite said it like that either. You know how when siblings fight, they say things that, no, you're taking it out of context. That's not what mom said. That's not what dad said. It was one of those. And so he was livid. So he's telling his wife, who is trying her best to calm him down and trying to get him to understand, I get that you're mad, but some way, somehow, you need to figure this out, because you need to find your brother. You need to find your brother. A couple of hours later, it's about sunset, Talita and Claire go stumbling into their room. They've been out the whole day enjoying themselves, water activities, and then they found themselves at some local beach bar where they could have some cocktails, and they are enjoying. So when they come back, they're like, babes, I'm going back to my room to relax, to rest, to maybe take a nap, sober up, we need to do dinner. And so they agree. So they're retired to their respective rooms. Now understand this about Talita. Talita is a barrister. So she is very used to this coffee culture. So much so that Talita doesn't need to, let me say that again. So much so that Talita can drink coffee and still go to bed. She's not one of those, no, I definitely cannot have coffee, otherwise I won't sleep. She can sleep. She can sleep. She knows the type of coffee to drink. She can sleep. So she gets herself a cup of coffee also to help her sober up, and goes to her room. An hour after they've arrived and they're laying in bed relaxing, Claire hears a knock at the door. She hears a knock at the door and she goes in, she answers. It's Amina, the lady from housekeeping. Amina lets her know that I'm bringing in some more towels, replenishing or refilling the water, coffee, tea, milk, anything else you need. I'm here to, service the room. And she says, of course, come in. Now she goes to Talita, well, at least her intention was to go to Talita to say, if you hear anything, don't worry. It's me and Mina from housekeeping. Alternatively, don't come out half naked. We've got somebody in the chalet or the room with us. As she approaches Talita's door to go and tell her, she hears a very familiar name come up. Matt. That's her ex-boyfriend. And so in Claire's mind, she's thinking, who are you talking to about Matt? And what about Matt? And so she leans closer to the door to listen. And she can hear Talita saying, I know, but what am I going to say? I mean, for goodness sakes, I've never told anybody this. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. It was something I planned to take to the grave with me. So I don't know why I'm telling you, but how do I even begin to say it to Claire? That one day I got drunk and I told your boyfriend that you went on vacation, or that vacation you took, you ended up kissing another guy. Like, how do I even begin to say that? And there it is. It's dawning on Claire what caused the relationship to fall apart. it's dawning on her that Matt actually did find out about that kiss. Not only did he find out, he was told about the kiss by a very reliable source. And now he's walked away from this relationship, rightfully so, but he's walked away from the relationship. And now she's burning. She's hurt. She's feeling betrayed. She's hurt. She's hurt. She's trying her best to process it. And she's leaning against the door like, while she's leaning and eavesdropping on this conversation, Amina comes out of her bedroom and she sees Claire leaning against Talita's door, and she's like, okay. And she carries on cleaning. She wants no part of this. This is none of her business. And in her mind, she's trying to figure out, now, how am I going to take extra towels to Talita if her friend is there busy eavesdropping? So she continues to clean. Eventually, Talita can hear this activity happening. So she says to the person on the phone, hold on, I think there's somebody in the room or in the chalet. Let me go and check what's going on. Claire hears her. So Claire starts backing away from the door very quickly. And without looking back, she bumps into Amina, who's holding glasses. The glasses drop and break. And so by the time Talita opens the door, she sees Claire there trying to pick these glasses up with Amina. And her gut instinct told her, Claire heard everything you said. Just the guilt, the look of guilt on Claire's face was like, I heard everything you said. And so she says, Claire, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And Claire's like, Matt, so it was you. And they start going back and forth. And Amina is looking like, nope, don't want a part of this. She takes the towels, she puts them on the table because she doesn't want to walk into Talita's room without her consent. And she's about to make her way out. But wait a minute. Amina smells something that is way too familiar. She picks up the jar where they put their hotel coffee beans for the guests. And she sniffs the jar. And she smells something that is very, very, very familiar. She smells it again. It dawns on her. She packs the jar up without them noticing. She puts another jar down, puts coffee beans in, and she leaves. Now she is racing towards her workstation. In the other room, you've got Derek and Gloria. Gloria is sitting there waiting for Derek. She is so afraid. She's just like, what came over me? What would even possess me to tell my husband that I think that his job is not as important as mine? She doesn't even know where that came from. Yes, truth be told, it's what she was feeling and thinking, but she's been with him for many years and has never told him that and never dreamt of telling him that. So what was it that made her blurt that out? She was mortified. She was horrified with herself. And so she waited and she waited and she waited. Eventually, Derek came in and she was waiting for him. And as soon as he walked in, she started apologizing. And Derek says to her, please, let's sit. We need to talk. And she sits down with him and she's apologizing and apologizing over. And Derek acknowledges, I made a mistake. I should have never gone and done this behind your back. I should have been more respectful and I should have been more responsible. But I was honestly doing what I was doing for the family's best interest. I was doing what I was doing to ensure that we're taken care of. I want to take better care of this family. And Gloria, she understands it. She completely understands it. And to take it a step further, this is now Derek's opportunity to let her know that this feeling inside of me didn't just come out of nowhere. I've been feeling this way because of some of the things you say and the way you treat me because I don't make as much money as you. And so here they are hashing this out. And he's telling Gloria, listen, I get it. You had dreams of marrying this man who this, that, and the other, but you chose to marry me. And you knew what it was I wanted to do. You knew what it was I was doing. If it didn't work for you, you should never have agreed. But what I'm not going to deal with any longer is this. This is a form of abuse. I can't deal with my wife telling me every other day about my work and how, and referring to my job as a dream and almost belittling it. It's not going to work. So it's either you get over this because the chef stuff is not going away, or we deal with it and we figure things out. They hash that conversation out. They are going and going and going. Now in Nathan and Calvin's room, Nathan is starting to panic. It's now the middle of the night and Calvin is still nowhere to be seen and found. He's worried. He's pacing up and down. He keeps calling his wife to give her updates. At this point, he's now in contact with the manager of the hotel. The manager is helping him look for his brother and letting him know, I called this hotel, he's not there, but letting him know everything. And Nathan is feeling terrible. He's just like, what have I done? This is my fault. He feels bad. He feels super, super, super bad. The next morning, Nathan decides there is no ways. Calvin still doesn't come home, and he decides there is no ways I can sit here. The sun is coming up and my brother is still nowhere to be seen. He rushes to reception. He asks them, he speaks to the manager again, who lets him know, still no sign. I've spoken to the police. There's just no sign of your brother. And he's like, well, I have to do something. And he decides, you know what, I'm going to go back to that beach where we were. That was the last time I saw him. Maybe I can speak to the boatmen there and see if any of them know anything. And so he gets a shuttle who takes him back to the beach, and he sees the guy the boatman who had taken them out there to ride the jet skis. And he sees that guy and he asks him, have you seen the guy I was with? And he says, no. And then he asks, have you seen the boatman who drove Calvin back? Because remember, they had to split up. When those men, the boatsmen jumped into the water and pulled them apart, they put them in separate boats. So they had to split up. And so he's now asking for the guy, the boatsman, for the other boat that had Calvin. And he says he's further down the beach, keep walking. And Nathan is like, walk. He runs. He's running down that beach, trying to see if he can recognize any of the boats, if he can recognize that man. And he notices in the distance a guy who looks very familiar, and he's like, that's the guy who was driving the boat, and he's running towards the guy. Eventually, this man sees him, and before he can even start explaining, the boatsman points to his boat. Nathan runs to the boat, and he sees Calvin sleeping in there. He immediately jumps in the boat, and he starts hugging Calvin. And Calvin wakes up to his brother holding him tight, hugging him, and repeating over and over again how sorry he was. You guys, in that moment, Calvin broke down. But when I say he sobbed, I mean that bitter sob. He wept. And for Nathan, there was a realization that this cry was very much carrying the burdens of what he had seen and done in the war. This cry was carrying some very deep, traumatic secrets. And he realized that this was really a breakthrough for his brother. There was something there. There was a breakthrough for his brother, and he cried. He couldn't help himself. He was crying. He too was crying bitterly. It was that moment that at least his wife was the reason he came on this vacation with his brother. His wife pushed for this. The wife kept on telling him, you guys need some sort of breakthrough. You're brothers. It cannot be as simple as, oh, we don't get along anymore. Or, oh, there's this disconnect. You have to push past that. There has to be something that's going to draw you guys back together. But this has to be sorted out. And so that's why he was there. And that very thing that Elise was urging him to go on vacation for was the thing that was happening right there on that boat. It was that breakthrough they were looking for. Amina is now in her workspace, and she is rummaging, and she pulls out a jar full of coffee beans. And she realizes, hold on, this jar full of coffee beans is not as full as it used to be. And so she immediately goes to the book to see who was working yesterday, who was on housekeeping duty and replenishing the coffee beans in which rooms, specifically in the room in Claire and Talita's room. And she notices, she reads Maria. And then she checks and she sees, oh, Maria also worked in Nathan and Calvin's room. Oh, Maria also worked in Derek and Gloria's room. And so she's looking and she's like, my goodness, what has gone on? Immediately says to Maria, come here. And Maria goes to her. Now, Amina is head of housekeeping at this hotel. Amina occasionally goes to the rooms herself to do the housekeeping, to make sure that the ladies and gentlemen are doing what they've been told to do. That they're doing the ladies are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So the fact that she's head is, she's making sure what needs to be done is being done. It's being handled. So she calls her and she says, come here. Yesterday when you were replenishing those coffee beans, where did you take those coffee beans from? And Maria was like, oh no, I took them actually from the jar here in your office. The beans hadn't been, Lucas hadn't done stock. He hadn't put them in. He hadn't stocked them. So I just, took what was here, what was available. And Amina was like, and who gave you the authority to do that? Who told you could take some beans from my table? And she was like, no, I mean, there were no beans, and I figured you wouldn't mind. You could always refill your jar as soon as Lucas had done what he needed to do. Amina is going off on Maria. Like, who gave you the authority? Who gave you the permission to come into my office and take what you see? Oh, Amina, mommy, what is really going on? What are you really upset with? Let me tell you guys a little bit about Amina. Before Amina came to being the head of housekeeping at this particular resort, Amina used to work on the farms with her dad for many, many years. In fact, Amina is very knowledgeable in the field of agriculture. She knows what she's doing. She knows about plants, she knows about trees, she knows about growth, she knows about sowing, she knows it all. She knows it. And so she was working on this farm with her dad, but unfortunately, she needed to make more money. The farm wasn't bringing in enough money to sustain herself and her child. And so she did what she felt she needed to do, which was go out there, go into one of these resorts and seek employment, which she did. And since she came into that resort, she's been climbing up the ladder slowly but surely. So she's able to make that money to help take care of her child. Oh, she's taking care of her child, and very well. So her time spent on that farm was time with her father, where he was teaching her about plants, about farming, about taking care of your crops, about planting, about everything you need to know, watering, how you do it, how you ensure that your crops get the proper nutrients. He did it all for her. And there was a particular plant on that property that her dad used to tell her stories about. And when she was growing up, she almost brushed them off as nothing but a myth. Nothing but, you know how older people tell stories, generational stories. It was passed down from great-grandpa to grandpa to dad to... So she used to listen to these stories, but in the back of her mind think, it doesn't sound quite right, but... okay. And one particular day, she went home and she told her dad about some of the problems. And this was before she managed to start working her way up. And she told her dad about problems she was having at the company. And her dad said, Amina, I know you don't believe me, but I'm your father. I told you about that plant. Use that plant. What was this plant, and what was this plant about? Why this particular plant? You see, this particular plant that the father was growing generously in his farm was plant that had the effects, I think that would actually be the word. A plant that had the properties of a psychoactive drug. A psychoactive drug. In other words, this plant was used as a truth serum. It was a well-known thing in their community that this particular plant, if you boil it and you get that juice from the boil, and you manage to strain it and filter it properly, you can use that. The same way you can drink vegetable juice, you can use that water. And it acts as some sort of psychoactive drug that makes people kind of let go and release and just be a lot more free. And as a result, they tend to just be a lot more truthful. Just like with alcohol, kind of the same effect as alcohol. And so this particular plant, he had told her about growing up many a times. And Amina decided, well, I'm having problems at the company. This couldn't really hurt. And so she used it. And she noticed, wait a minute, it's working. My supervisors are being a lot more honest with me. My supervisors are being a lot more open with me. Let me use it on my colleagues. And she realized, wait a minute, this is working. My colleagues are a lot more open with me. They're a lot more honest with me. And so she continued to use it. And now she uses it on her staff too, to make sure that she keeps them in line. You see, in the hotel industry, there's a lot happening behind closed doors. People are making backdoor deals with the guests so that they can make a little bit of money. You've got hotel staff dabbling with each other, having relationships. You've got staff who are stealing. And so she used this truth serum very well. She used it to her benefit, unapologetically. She used it. She would boil the plants, strain it, make sure she was left with that juice, that water. She would then take coffee beans, soak the coffee beans in that water so that they could absorb that liquid, that juice. She would remove her coffee beans and dry them out again. So the liquid itself stayed in the beans. The psychoactive drug stayed in the beans. And occasionally when she felt, things are not sitting well with me, or it's my time to climb up the ladder, or I wonder what my supervisor really thinks, she would get the coffee beans and use them. I know at the beginning of the story I told you the story was about 6 strangers, or rather 3 couples who had come on this vacation, husband and wife, brothers and friends who had come on this vacation, and their lives were forever changed, their relationships were forever changed because of this vacation. But really what I should have told you is this story is about Amina. Amina, who is brewing her own truth serum and is controlling a whole entire hotel with coffee beans.